Welcome to the O Brother Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
Hey, Dan. How's it going?
Good, man. October 17th, 2020, Halloween Fest rolls on.
We're in the middle of it.
Just another day.
Yeah, it's just one of those days where,
nothing unusual.
Nothing going on.
So, now you remember, let's tell a quick story. So we've got a special guest on the show today. But before we introduce that, when it was 1985, you drove us to New Jersey. It was going to be my first Bruce Springsteen concert.
Mm-hmm.
And I locked these very expensive tickets in the car.
$800, $400 a ticket. And this is in 1985.
Yeah. So that's what, $4,000 by
today's something standards? Like that today.
$40,000.
Yeah.
$52,000. And so it was terrifying because it was just the money and just the whole circumstances was a panic.
So we're getting ready to go in to the show.
Getting ready to go in. You got the tickets? Oh, where are the tickets?
And I had given them to you, I think.
Yeah. And I conveniently locked them in the glove box, I think, or the console inside the car.
We could see them.
Oh, were they? Okay.
They were right in the center console.
Now, this Giant Stadium is huge. Well, of course, it's gone now. They rebuilt it, but the original, it's huge, football stadium. And I can remember, and you made me, now I'm like 13, and you made me run around the stadium and find someone that had like a lockjaw to get it. What do you call it? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, a lockjack.
Yeah.
And actually, I didn't send you. I don't know. You did that on your own.
There ended up being this big, like, Paul Bunyan kid.
Yes.
That ended up coming over and was able to pop the lock and get it open. Thank God.
And there was a guy that was, I had made the decision to let this one guy punch in the window.
But we didn't.
So I think you were off looking for somebody. And the killer is, this was Sunday. The concert was supposed to be Friday. And through a series of fluke events, it winds up being on Sunday. The concert got canceled.
Right.
So I said, I paid $800 for these tickets. I'm just going to let the guy break my window. What's another $60, whatever. And then all of a sudden this tow truck pulls up. And that was you.
Yeah.
And I was broke at this point because we spent the whole weekend in New Jersey. I couldn't even pay him.
Right.
So he does it and I can't give him any money.
So it's interesting you would mention kind of a pay it forward moment. That ties into what we're about to talk about. So that was one of the most terrifying moments of my life because, I was facing imminent death, let's be honest.
Yeah, I think when you told me, your face was pretty white.
So we have on the show today, really excited to talk to this guy, Jamie Chambers, who's an actor, producer, jack of all trades in the industry and just in life, all the things that he's done.
And look him up on IMDb.
Yeah.
And do a search and check out all the stuff he's done. He's been in
huge movies.
Like every major franchise and
Mission Impossible, Star Wars, Fury.
We've already talked to him, and what I got out of his interview was this is a guy that's very motivated. He's laid the foundation for what's going to be a big career.
No doubt. And so we were, he was very gracious with his time. And we start off the interview, we're kind of getting to know each other and, thanking him for the time. And then we got into some kind of interesting conversation and about, 30 minutes in, I guess.
Yeah.
I discovered that I was not recording the meeting. So we've talked about the number one terrifying moment in my life. This is number two, but it's a close, it's a close race. Yeah. So this happened to, we had another similar snafu with one of our other episodes, our trivia challenge episode.
Yeah.
Listen,
this was much worse.
Yes, it was. Things happen for a reason. And, Jamie was so gracious and he just like rolled with it that honestly, I don't think in having met him and talked to him now, I don't think you could get a bad interview from this guy. He's just so grounded and really a student of film and had a lot of fascinating stories. And the one thing that you'll hear in this interview that I think resonated with me the most is the thoughtfulness and care that he puts into the work that he's doing and the films that he's choosing and he's involved with. That was kind of a big theme for me.
And some of his projects that he's working on now are really like are important topics. They're not just, they're not just popcorn eater films, right? Which he made reference to that. I'm not sure if we got it or not.
He did, yeah.
But he talked about sometimes I like to go to the movies and just, I always say that phrase, this is a popcorn eater's movie. But I'm looking forward to seeing his future stuff. And, he's already done a lot of work.
He has. He really has.
I think he's going to be, he just has a drive about him,
mm-hmm.
and he has a way about him, put us at ease.
Yeah.
Usually you're supposed to put a guest at ease. He put us at ease.
Well, especially me.
I happened to be off. I
Right.
wasn't on the feed when you found out it hadn't recorded.
And I was
So
apologizing.
I missed
Yeah.
that apology. And I came on, and then you had to tell me, and I was like, oh, brother. This is why we call it this.
He was unfazed. So enough of listening to us, but let's get to the interview with Jamie Chambers. We hope you guys enjoy it.
Check him out.
Yeah, definitely
And,
check him out.
He's got some great stuff coming your way.
And a lot of great stories. So here we go. Jamie Chambers interview with Oh Brother. So we want to welcome Jamie B. Chambers to the Oh Brother podcast. Actor, producer, speaker, Renaissance man, all those good things. Jack of all trades, master of none. And we appreciate you being here today. We're really, really grateful that you're giving us this time today to be with us.
I feel like I've met you. I'm having deja vu.
I'm getting that weird thing, definitely.
Oh yeah, people don't know how generous you're being right now, but Mike and I this month, we kind of kicked this month off. It's October, so everybody's in the Halloween spirit and celebrating all the horror genre films, and so we've been calling it Halloween Fest with Oh Brother. And it's been fun to go back and enjoy some of these horror films because he and I are not regular watchers of that genre, but it has been enjoyable to go back. And we had an episode on The Invisible Man, and we just did The Shining. And we just watched a little film that you might know called Slasher House 2 this week.
Okay.
So do you got any memories of the making of that particular film?
What a great project. That was actually one of my first forays into horror in that sense, and it was one of those where completely right place, right time, right moment. I was talking with MJ, who's an absolutely amazing director, and I'd done a film called Estate, and after Estate I did Beyond Redemption, which was borderline horror but not quite, more thriller. And Andy Gilbert was speaking with MJ, and they were like, oh, we just done this stuff for this guy, but he's 30 or 29, 30. I look old anyway. But, MJ was like, yeah, but I'm looking for a 60-year-old guy. And so I phoned MJ, and I did a quick little tape, and they were like, you can fight, you can act, but you're like 30 years too young. But as it happens, it was just luck of the draw, and I end up on the set, and fantastic experience of just good people coming together to make the project work, which was awesome. And it's got that proper old school cult feeling to it, and proper American classic greens and reds, real sort of retro look. Being in 3 prosthetic masks, which you never see because they're covered by this big skull thing. That was challenging, it has to be said. But no, I loved it. And Francesca was awesome. It was her first time doing massive sort of martial arts sequences. So getting beaten up by her was fantastic. We did so many rehearsals.
Did you choreograph that scene with her where you had the fight?
Yeah, and the choreography was far more enjoyable than the sequence because I got to wear joggers and a t-shirt, and that immediately made it a lot more palatable. But it was awesome because I think it came out as something like a couple of 100 moves in the end, which we did as a master, and we got all the way through it. And then it was a lot of cutting and finding which ways work with the 180 rule and the 30-degree rule and things like that. We took a beating that day. At one point, we've both got shin guards on, we've both got forearm guards on, because some angles you'll never sell unless there's contact. But it was an awesome sequence, and the fact that the film itself is setting up for the 3rd one, and it's got a fantastic cult following. MJ's built this fantastic like horror universe, and I'm much like you guys. I jump in and out of horror, but I don't necessarily I'll go watch a horror film over and over. But yeah, I mean, it treads that line really well, where some horror movies can get it wrong, where it doesn't take itself too seriously. It knows what it is, it knows what it's doing, and it really does exactly what it says on the tin.
I was glad you said that about the contact, because I wondered about that scene. I'm like, they're belting each other in this battle here. Looked like you both got clocked a few times.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff is tricks of angles and stuff like that. And I'm very lucky to have worked with some fantastic stunt coordinators and performers, and some of my closest friends are British stunt registered performers. And some things you get away with based on the angle, and some, like big punches to the face and the gut and stuff like that, you can get away with. But when it comes to like the director wants it on the 180 and it's a 2-shot, and at some point you're going to have to pad up and take the hit, and there's no 2 ways about it. So I felt bad for Francesca at certain points, because typical of leading lady stuff, there's only so much armor you can hide in form-fitting stuff. Whereas for me, it was like, I can put pads here.
What was the size difference there? It's a pretty.
I'm a clear foot taller than her. So,
yeah. What do you stand? What's your height?
Me, I'm just 6 foot, literally.
Really? You look so much taller than that on screen.
Yeah. I'm very appreciative of any DOP that makes me look taller.
Yeah, no, everything I've seen.
I mean, it's not a Tom Cruise thing. I haven't got to walk around in elevated pumps, but yeah, I'm barely 6 foot.
So take us back a little bit to some early memories of, movie going, and if it relates to maybe your appreciation for stunt performers. Is that something that?
Yeah, I mean, my earliest sort of TV show film thing, something that I have fundamental respect for, was a TV show called Red Dwarf. And that got me into watching TV as a whole and enjoying stuff, because it was comedy sci-fi. And you guys only got a pilot over there in the States, but we've had 10 series. But that was like, I like watching things. And then for me, my earliest film memory is Terminator 2. It's just an iconic film. That and Aliens, they stick out for me as like my first sort of go-to films. I've still got the VHS cassette of Terminator 2 from.
I've got the box. I've got the box of Terminator 2.
And it's beautiful because it's just before titles and taglines became like really sort of orthodox and everything looked the same. So this one had like Terminator 2 and Schwarzenegger, and then you got the blue and black title, but then you've got all this writing down the bottom where Cameron was like, no, the log line's like 10 paragraphs long. It for me, that film was sci-fi, horror, action. It had all those things encompassed, because obviously the Terminator, is an out-and-out horror film. regardless of the sci-fi elements, it's a Michael Myers type Halloween film. It's the monster chasing the end girl. And for Terminator 2 to flip it on its head, and you still get those fantastic horror elements with the T-1000, which at the time, watching that film, I couldn't have been more than like 6. Those are quite graphic and practical horror elements, which are awesome. So yeah, my earliest moment is Terminator 2.
We loved it because, Mike, remember we used to go Universal Studios here in Florida.
And they filmed Terminator 3D, and it was a lot of fun because they brought back, you know, the cast, and it was really like back to the original, which I was going to ask, because all the iterations afterward, you know, some were okay, some were good, you know, and they just brought it back to kind of its roots. You know, any of them?
I personally think with Terminator, it was on a downhill trajectory at 3. Rise of the Machines was like the beginning of the end. It knew what it was, and it took too much of a joke out of itself. Literally from like the first introduction of the T-800 with the stripper sunglasses and the talk to the hand moment, and I was like, this isn't my Terminator anymore. And even listening to the Arnold commentary on Terminator 3, you could tell that he was like, oh no, we just did this because it was fun. And it's like, no, that's not Terminator. Terminator is meant to be horror, sci-fi, action. And for me, Dark Fate, it's not the worst film ever made.
Yeah.
That honor goes to Suicide Squad. But it's...
we could relate.
Yeah, but for me, it was like, no, stop flogging this dead horse now. Let it go. For me, it's Terminator 1, Terminator 2, Terminator 3D, and then finish on Terminator 3, because it's the, in terms of that film, at least you get to the point of Independence Day, and you get to the point of Skynet becoming sentient, and then done. No more. Yeah. Love Christian Bale, I really do, but he's not John Connor. He's just not. And then with Genesis, you can't make John Connor the bad guy. Yeah. So all these missteps all the way along, and then to kill John Connor in the 6th is like, well, I give up. No,
right.
Yeah. So for me, certain franchises you can leave alone. Terminator you can leave alone. Alien you can leave alone. Rocky, Rambo, these franchises you can just let be now. They deserve cult status, and they deserve to sort of just be preserved, much like Godfather. They deserve to be preserved where they are. There's no need to rinse more money out of them. Certain franchises deserve reboots and deserve to be redone. Transformers could do with that, but for me, yeah, Terminator stops at 3.
Now, you mentioned Godfather. I have to ask, Mike, Jamie, what are your thoughts about The Godfather Part 3?
This is why you don't change the writer. For me, there were so many loose ends, and I know from being a massive film geek that it was a tumultuous set to work on, and you had big egos not learning their lines and things like that, and they got to a point where people were fighting people just for time on screen and things like that, and giving status to people that didn't need it, or characters that didn't warrant it. And for me, when you peaked, because Godfather and Godfather 2 are examples again of where you do it right. Terminator 1, Terminator 2, Alien, Aliens, Godfather, Godfather 2, all these sort of films prove right. Do the first film, do the sequel, leave it alone. And it doesn't quite overstep, but at the same time, you're like, this is unnecessary. This doesn't add anything to what was given to us in the first 6 hours of Godfather, you know?
Well, we won't try to persuade you, but we did do a whole episode on why people should love that film.
It was a trick question.
It was a trick question, yeah.
You can't bend my arm on Godfather 3.
Yeah, well, it's been the butt of so many jokes. We figured, let's go back and analyze the film for what it was.
And the new cut is coming out.
Yeah, and I guess it was never supposed to be a trilogy. It was supposed to be a coda. And so it'll be interesting, I think, to see what Francis does with, I don't expect it to be a money grab, but we'll see.
Yeah, for me, I'm always intrigued because of this whole Snyder Cut thing that's going on with DC.
Yeah, 70 million I read last night.
Yeah, so that the whole thing with like director's cuts, and I mean the most iconic thing about director's cuts would be Blade Runner for me, because there's like 6 or 10 versions of that film.
Right.
So for me, it's about interference and studio interference and producer interference and things like that. And for me, either get the director you want and let them do it, or sack that director and go and find the one you need. Solo is another perfect example of, we got the wrong director, it's going sideways, pull him out, put in the director you need. And Ron Howard proved you can salvage something, you can do well.
Yep. We both like that a lot. And for somebody who's been a star, stormtrooper, we're both, big fans.
Yeah, you may have picked up on the subtlety. I didn't want to fanboy, but I mean,
yeah, I didn't even notice it till now.
A little tip of the hat there to you.
So you've been on sets like Slasher House 2, and then you've been on these gigantic sets like Fury and, so many. Like, what's the difference? And what, for you, how do you act differently, or do you?
I refuse to behave differently from one set to the next. I think there'll be something inherently disingenuous even, if you are a different person from your low budget indie to your multi-million pound feature. For me, I was brought up on the principles that it doesn't matter if it's the CEO or the cleaner, you treat everyone the same. So from my perspective, they're less personal in terms of the fact that on an indie, everyone intimately in terms of what time they get up and how they have their coffee and things like that. What time they get grouchy on set. Whereas you slide that across, you've got so many departments and such size and so many units on huge features. I mean, Star Wars is a perfect example. The Jakku set, the practical set that we were on in Abu Dhabi, the size was insane. We're talking, it was measured in miles, not meters. So like from that alone, that was incredible to work on, and to be on the salt flats where it just looks forever. And Skywalker Valley, where Rey is introduced at the start of the film, being involved with that, because that scene itself took forever because it was so hot, and to try and get that sled to go down the side of the dune, that shot in itself took half a day, and it should have taken 1 minute. So yeah, for me, I don't change. I refuse to change. I would much rather everyone say the same thing about me on every single set than, oh no, he was like this over here, but then he went on this. And yeah, it's much easier just to be the same person always.
Just not authentic. Yeah. If you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you really love acting, you're doing the same thing. I mean, inside, whether you're doing a play in high school or, you're in a Star Wars film, inside it feels the same. But,
yeah, I mean, that's one of my biggest regrets is not, and it's the best regret to have, is to not have done something sooner. And that's my only thing about performing, acting, that sort of plethora of things, is I wish I just had the bottle to go into it sooner. That's it. Everything else, it's the best mistake I ever made. But for me, it was like, yeah, I didn't do this in high school. I didn't do this in college. I didn't do this in university. And I didn't have that footing, that grounding of the amateur dramatics, or even, I mean, I'm very lucky in terms of who actually gave me acting guidance. But it was one of those where like I didn't have a footing to begin with, and that's my only real regret about that, is not having it much sooner.
Right.
Now you went to university in the UK. I mean,
Yeah.
was film part of those studies, or what was your pursuit there?
Not even a little bit. So I was still heavily involved in sport, and I sat down with my parents at 17, 18, and I was like, done college. I've got some vocational stuff done, still doing like relatively high-end sport. What do I do? And the sort of overriding theme that came out of that conversation was, what happens if you can't perform? What happens if physically you're no longer able? And for me, university became that logical end to education. It wasn't what I did, it was getting there and doing it, and to get the bachelor's degree and to have that experience of, I mean, I was terrible at uni. I was just awful. I was out of my depth. I knew this was like as far as I could push my education. Nothing has ever come easy to me in that sense. I'm not naturally gifted with the ability just to learn. Everything involves sitting down, repetition, learn it, do it, forget it, and then learn it again. So my degree is biomechanics, international politics, all based around sport. And that gave me a real appreciation now when I'm learning 150-page scripts, because it's like, you'll know better than anyone, guys. You never film anything chronologically. You never film anything in order. So it gave me a real appreciation of like, right, page 120, my character's done this, and this, and this has all happened. So I've got to look this way and feel this way and do that. And then the next day you're filming page 1. And that was that real appreciation. So as much as I've not used my degree in any way, apart from letters at the end of my name, apart from that, I mean, it's been helpful in more vocational ways.
I think that's something that I would worry about. You talk about scripts. I always thought, I don't know that I could just remember my lines. And Mike, you had that experience with acting.
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things. You sit with it and you just keep going over, and hopefully you have a scene partner and you can drill with them. And I was curious too, because, we look at your resume and, a lot of film. Did you do any stage stuff?
That's one of the things where like, I've always left that avenue open. But I think the real thing is, I need a director to be shouting at me, telling me how awful I am. I think the live side of things is something where I've got a huge amount of respect for it. I've got friends that are in Lion King, Aladdin, and sort of the high-end West End shows, and it does appeal, but at the same time, it doesn't have that same excitement for me as TV and film. I think because you can go again so many different ways in a film, or from scene to scene and shot to shot, or you can literally just say, that was awful, we can go again. I had it recently on American Monster, and going into this dingy basement with a flashlight, playing this San Francisco cop, and I find this corpse and I'm radioing it in, and in my head I knew the lines that I was doing, I knew what I was saying, and I still got it wrong. And it was only a simple mistake, and it would be fixed with ADR, no issue, but in my head I nailed everything. I was like, that was beat for beat. I'd made sure that the flashlight went across the camera, so you got the J.J. Abrams lens flare, all that sort of stuff. I was like, I've nailed this, and then said the lines wrong. So it was like, just stop, go again. But in live performance, you haven't got that. You haven't got that crutch. And I personally, I don't rate myself highly enough as a stage actor. I think stage acting is an incredible talent to have, and the skill to be able. I mean, I was watching Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart, Waiting for Godot, and it's just incredible. The fact that they know this play verbatim, and whether it be something a bit more classical or whether it be full traditional Shakespeare, contemporary, I've got huge respect for it. I'm not entirely sure I can do it.
Yeah, and something like Waiting for Godot, it has so many loops. I can remember doing a similar play in college, and we were in one of these loops, very similar, and your brain, if you don't keep track of the loop you're in, you're looking at the actor like, I don't know where I am, and you can almost talk to each other with your eyes. The one thing, film acting, from my own experience, which is very little, but other people I know, is there's a lot of waiting. They've got to set up the lights, they got to set up this, they got to set up that. And what do you do? And I have a feeling I know the answer to this, but I want to throw it at you and see what you say.
The tagline for the film industry in the UK is "Hurry up and wait." That's basically what it is. What we do, I mean, we're quite lucky over here because for the most part, we're either in a situation where we've got a lot of rehearsals to do. So any downtime, any time away, it's used straight away. It's rehearsal, it's repetition. So a lot of the stuff that I do in an action capacity, I'm with other performers that are just raring to go. So perfect example was Beowulf, where we were doing the final fight sequence on that, and the setup for it was taking way longer than we thought because they wanted it to look like natural light coming through windows, so big setups of redheads and things like that. So we had 3 or 4 hours where we could have just been down and just sat and just enjoyed. But instead, it was repetition of fight sequences over and over and over, beat for beat, time for time, making sure you take the bumps at the right time, all that sort of stuff. Different occasions where, like, you appreciate the downtime on things like Fury. I was on Fury for 6 months in total.
Wow.
From like first day previs at Pinewood through to wrap last day at out in the fields in Watford. And on those days, on occasion, you've got to grab 5 minutes where you're not sprinting across a field or getting rigged up for something. So yeah, it does depend on the project you're on. But for me, for the most part, I can't sit still for too long. So
yeah,
I've got to be doing or being or trying. I turned up for Dark Angel a few years back. I got a phone call saying we need someone to play a hangman. So I got the lines, got sent through. It was just a couple of days up in York, and this runner came up to me and said, "Oh, your trailer's over here." And I was like, "Nah, don't worry about it. Where's the DOP that I can annoy for an hour?"
Right.
Where can I go and learn something? Where can I go and see something? So yeah, I'd rather be sat with a member of the crew, watching how a director or a first AD works. I mean, directors and DOPs and first ADs are some of my favorite people because the way they marshal a film set, not just in camera, but behind camera, is incredible. I mean, Toby Heffernan has got to be one of the best first ADs I've ever seen. Absolutely incredible. He's now exec producer on like Rogue One and Solo and stuff like that. And to watch him work was astounding, absolutely incredible. So yeah, there is no downtime for me. I'm always doing something.
I guessed that's the rabbit hole you were going down, because a lot of times, cut actors go to the trailer, they go to craft services. I had this feeling you were the guy that would stay on set because you can learn so much.
There's always something you can do on set as well. And it's little things. I'm a massive advocate of pay it forward. So little things like if people are moving rigs or changing setup, it might be as small as moving a sandbag or some mats, or just asking someone, do you want a hand or do you want me to hold that? Little things. And it makes a huge difference. And you learn something in the process. Like, I love learning about anything to do with the setup for something in camera. So tripods, sliders, all that sort of stuff, how lighting affects. I mean, in lockdown, I learned how to use a green screen because it was like, right, how do I learn this? Because I'm not allowed to go outside. Like, little things, but it made a big difference.
Yeah, I wanted to ask that too. You've got, with acting and producing, is there an interest in directing? Is that something you've...
I think second unit direction is something I'd be massively open to, because there's the action element, and it's also a case of you can take your time to do something very specific. Watching the second unit on Star Wars Fury, Kingsman, I was blown away by the stuff that they did, and it's fantastic to watch anything to do with stunts, because it's something that, for various reasons, I haven't gone down the stunt avenue. I've made sure that the stunt stays very close to me, but I put that into the acting as opposed to the other way. And the fact that I've got so many good friends in stunts as well means that second unit stuff is something that massively appeals to me. So I think directing a whole film is something I'll wait until I've had a bit more experience in the industry. But yeah, definitely anything that would be go away and film this explosion. Yes, of course, 100%.
I'm on it.
Yeah, one thing we've always done since the time, we were really young, when the movie ends, we stay in our seats and we watch the credits. We're usually like the last people to leave a movie. And when you see the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that work on a film, I don't think people really appreciate what goes into behind the scenes and how many units and all that.
I'm so glad you said that, because I thought I was the only one. I always do it because I think that it's a certain amount of pay and respect to a film to watch the end and to watch the credits. And there's also the whole thing of, you're always going to learn something from it. Like, if there was something that you couldn't quite tell about camera angles or the lighting, but you wait and you see who the gaffer was, or you see who the sparks were, little things that make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly you're like, oh, that's why that was shot that way. Or you can't quite put your finger on why all these actors are together. Oh, it's casted by XYZ. And that, for me, you're always going to take something away from it. And it's helped me, because you understand how relationships build and how you can then do that for yourself. Because the one thing about film now seems to be is that everyone's building their own little teams. Everyone's got a DOP, a first, a second, that works together intrinsically, and one doesn't come without the other the vast majority of the time. So yeah, I love watching the credits. It's just all my friends have left by that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, what is the we've been, of course, everybody's been dealing with this pandemic, and Mike and I were talking and wondering what's the current state of, and actually we've written about this, the current state of going to the movies, where, all these huge blockbusters are getting delayed and productions are shut down. So how are things there, and how has your own work been impacted by that?
So I'm quite lucky, because I find I get a lot of news given to me by people that are on various different projects. I mean, Batman's filming in Scotland at the moment. Jurassic Park is filming in Pinewood. It's a weird one, because I think there are different levels of how serious people are taking things. And I don't mean any disrespect in that sense. It's just a case of, I mean, I've had maybe 20 COVID tests since March. Every sort of invasive test you can think of. At one point, I'm sure the testing lady scraped the back of my skull.
Oh man, that's unreal.
It's absolutely insane. I think it gave everyone a shock as to how quick things can change and how much we were reliant on things being the way they always were. And the ability to adapt has been something that has seen a lot of companies struggle with. And also, one person being sick can now affect 200, 300 people. Whereas before, you turn up if you had a cold or a slight temperature, it's a no-go now. It's not something that can happen. So yeah, I think from my perspective, the industry is starting to adapt, but it hasn't quite got there yet. I mean, for instance, one person in one department gets sick, that entire department is out for 2 weeks. Robert Pattinson returned a positive test, and Batman was shut down for a month. So yeah, it hasn't affected me. I've done 5-6 projects since March, and it's one of those where it's either luck of the draw or whatever it might be. I mean, as much as I don't think I'm going to get sick, I play by the rules. I wear a mask, all that sort of stuff. And I think it's going to be very much a case of the industry will find a way to adjust. Tenet has proved that you can't release anything. I think it's still 93 million in the red. And I think it's put a lot of people off going to the cinema, because whereas before, I didn't necessarily, not that I would sit next to anyone, I can't stand sitting next to anyone. If I'm going to the cinema, I need 20 seats around me, silent.
That sounds familiar.
No one will be eating.
Yeah.
I will go to the midnight showing just to guarantee no one's there. But yeah, I think the experience will never be the same anymore. I'm actually a big advocate for cinema at home. I believe that there is a structure that can be made now based on streaming platforms, based on access to media, that there should be the choice of whether you watch something at home or at the cinema on the same day. Disney Plus proved it with Mulan, that you can release something and get it straight into people's homes and millions of people will watch it. For me, it's just a case of the big 6 studios finding a way that works, because the cinema experience shouldn't be killed off. It is something intrinsic about our society and being in close quarters to share an experience. I mean, I'm lucky enough to have seen the Lord of the Rings films where people got up and applauded. Mm-hmm. You know, things like that. They shouldn't be lost to time, ever. But at the same time, society changes and streaming platforms have proved, especially with the abundance of Netflix and Prime, that you can put entire multi-million pound projects just on the platform. Bright was a perfect example of giving Will Smith a platform to do it. And yeah, I loved that film. I thought it was awesome. And I got a Netflix subscription because of that. So those sort of things do work. I would hate for this pandemic to be the reason that we lose cinema.
Yeah, and that I've written about it several times, because it seems like, you know, like the cinemas that used to play like old Hitchcock. I'm a big fan of film noir and classics, and I love to see them in the movie theater, you know, because usually you have to watch them on home video. But a lot of those small cinemas are dying off, and even Regal. I don't know. Do you have Regal in the UK?
Regal died off for us 10 years ago.
Well, they were still alive, but now they've pulled the plug.
Yeah. And
I'm worried. You know, I'm worried that experience is going to be different.
I'm of the same mindset as you. My thought was, when the argument that there aren't enough new releases to warrant a cinema, my first thought was, because I've just ordered the top 100 movies scratch poster,
right,
just to prove that I can scratch off all of them. But what it was like, I looked at Picture House and Cineworld, and I was like, you have a back catalogue of thousands of films, and you've got no excuse not to put Casablanca or Citizen Kane, whatever it might be. Put that film on. I would pay to go watch The Dirty Dozen, 100%.
Yeah.
And we have Everyman Cinema here, which has like leather seats that recline and things like that. And make that experience where you can go and watch a film in all its glory, you know, because that's the fundamental for me, is the fact that some films you have to experience big screen, otherwise you lose something. There's a certain je ne sais quoi you lose from a film not being in a big screen format. So yeah, from my perspective, I think there's a real argument for back catalogs to be put back out into the. I know Disney will never do it, but when you look at Universal and Paramount, the films that they've got that you could easily do a week's showing of Casablanca, or any number of Humphrey Bogart films, anything like that, when suddenly that appreciation again. I've just rewatched a load of the old Sinatra films.
Yeah.
So like Sinatra's Version of Robin Hood and Ocean's 11, and I was like, I had no appreciation for this era of filmmaking.
Yes.
And I should. And realizing how good the Rat Pack were or what they did, and then suddenly it was like, well, this would be awesome at the cinema. And an experience that was lost to the 50s and 60s, which we have no excuse that we can't do it now.
Yeah, you know, Sinatra did so many films that people missed because they, you know, our generation, we think of him as a singer.
Yes.
But he's done a ton of film, you know, Man with the Golden Arm, all sorts of things I can think of. It's so funny. You brought up Casablanca. I just watched it yesterday on at home. It was, you know, it's still as great as it was, you know, when I first saw it.
You're right, too.
Casablanca is just one of those where if not just for the story, but for how that film was put together, and the fact that the vast majority of it is on a soundstage is absolutely insane. I mean, the final sequence in that film is on a soundstage in a backlot, and they got I use the right word here. They got small people to be in the back of shot to look like they were in the distance,
right?
And the snow is a mix of asbestos and sugar, and it's absolutely amazing. And I was like, if I didn't know that, I wouldn't know that. Whereas nowadays you can sort of tell when things are a bit hokey, and the quality is still there to this day.
Yeah. We talked a lot about Kubrick in the last several episodes, and you know,
it's hard.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite directors, but as I've joked with Mike, I had only seen a handful of his films up until recently. So to be able to see some of those, like Paths of Glory and some of those on the big screen would be, that might get me to the theater.
I think with people that have a series of good films, it's very easy to go and miss the ones that fall through the cracks. And Kubrick is a perfect example of that, where everyone goes Shining, Clockwork Orange, and they pick out the big ones. But even to like Space Odyssey, people don't go back past, and the same with Spielberg and Cameron, where you've got THX 1138 and these films that get, like I say, lost to time. And it's a perfect chance now, when £400 million films aren't making their money, to go, right, we have space, we have time. Well, you can sit 3 people apart, but here's what Kubrick did in 1970 something.
Yeah, the first movie I made him watch when we started this was The Killers with Sterling Hayden, which is a phenomenal film.
So talk about, Jamie, you know, I saw in looking at just some of the info on IMDb, it's a lot of projects that are, you know, in the works, or, you know, can you talk a little bit about, you know, what you got going on?
Yeah, I mean, the first, the big thing that I have on the works at the moment with my business partner, Winston Ellis, is The Beast, which is When Eddie Met Arnie.
We were going to ask you about this.
Yeah, are we going to get that?
Yeah.
It released just this weekend, right?
No. That was a clerical error. That should have been October 21.
Oh, okay. So you're in pre still.
No, we are fully in production.
Okay.
So what's happened is we wrote off 6 months of this project after February. We were just like, everything goes on hold, everything stops. The project as a whole is absolutely incredible, and I'm incredibly lucky to be a part of it. Not just the Schwarzenegger thing. Eddie Hall's story is fantastic, and it's a story that has to be told. To be the world's strongest man is an amazing feat in itself. The amount of dedication, time, effort, sacrifice that goes into that. It's also the perfect vehicle for something that is far more it goes across a plethora of different things. So for us, we're touching on mental health, we're touching on masculinity, what it is to be a sports performer, what it is to be elite, depression, the trials of being a sports performer, but also what happens next. And that's the key thing. If you look at Schwarzenegger, Cena, Johnson, Weathers, all these iconic actors, they all had, and Jackie Chan and Jet Li, they all had a past which has nothing to do with film and TV in any way. They're all elite sports performers. So what happens when you can't do that anymore? What happens when you can no longer be in that profession, whether it's age or just physically you can't do it? And I missed Statham off that list, and that's a naughty. I shouldn't have done that. But yeah, so following Eddie as he follows Arnold's path has been incredible. We follow Eddie out to Graz, to the Arnold Museum, which is an incredible place to be. It's Arnold's old house, old family home, and it's been retrofitted with Terminator, Conan, memorabilia. You can lie in Arnold's bed, which is absolutely amazing.
What is it, like a museum almost?
Yeah, it's the Arnold Museum. Yeah, It's incredible. And then what we've done is we found a way to bring those two stories together. Eddie's first real sort of memory of Arnold is pretty much very similar to mine. It's Terminator. So what we did is, in Eddie's hometown, we found a bar that looks very similar to the bar in Terminator 2, in the opening sequence. And what we've done is we've recreated the Terminator 2 bar sequence, but with Eddie as the T-800.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
Yeah, and then we've got various other things where we look at Eddie's mindset and how he was going to drop the bar at this iconic deadlift, and then out of the corner of his eye, Arnold was there, and Arnold tells him, "Put it up." And there's this amazing picture of Arnold with his thumb like that, getting it up, and that was the difference. That was the tipping point, and that got Eddie to that point. So they're intertwined. Their stories sort of, the reason Eddie is where he is the help of Arnold. So it makes sense for us now that Eddie's moving into acting and performing, that Arnold be that mentor, that guiding person through that. So The Beast is going to be fantastic, and it's going to touch on a lot more things than just film and sport. It's going to be looking at depression, mental health, anxiety, what it is to define who you are as a person, the toll of wanting to be the best at something. Does it mean that you have personal sacrifice, and is that personal sacrifice warranted? Is that worth more than your personal life? So yeah, that project as a whole, I'm very lucky to be involved with it. There's an incredible list of crew and producers and execs on this that have done an absolutely amazing job. Hopefully we'll be out in America to finish it off relatively soon. And then we look at the global theatrical release after that.
Yeah, good. We're looking forward to it. It sounds fascinating when you read even the little description they had, with the depression, and Dan's got a background in mental health, and
yeah, we were glad
like
you brought it up, because like Mike studied psychology and I've worked in the mental health field for a little while, and that stigma that still exists around that topic, and threading that theme and putting a spotlight on that with a character, a man who's larger than life, and like you said, that machismo thing that goes along with that, and very, very interesting. I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, I think with depression and mental health, I mean, I had my own fight a few years back, and I mean, one of the reasons I am where I am is because I'd grounded out. I had already hit zero. I was in my 20s, but it was couldn't get out of bed, didn't want to go to work. It was a toxic environment that I was in, and all those sort of things. And it was an inspiration. It was a jumping off point. It was like, it's only going to spiral worse. And it doesn't matter what people say about where you are or what you're doing or any of those things, because it's you and yours, and it's in your head. And you can't, as much as you want to, you can't fight that battle in your own head. That's something that you find a way out of it, but fighting it isn't going to work. So for me, it was finding that change. It was knowing that if I can get this change and find a new avenue that isn't toxic, that is what I want to do, it doesn't matter how hard it is, but it is what I want to do. That's the difference. And a lot of people ask me about like the big depression word and things like that. And there's no cookie cutter way of getting through any scenario like that. And you can't just go to someone and say, don't be depressed anymore. It doesn't work like that. And it doesn't matter who you are or what you're doing. It will just come and find you. And I mean, so many examples of people who outside looking in, they've got it all, and they have it all. And one of the hardest things that hit me, I'm a massive metal fan. I mean, Slipknot, Linkin Park, Korn are some of my favorite bands of all time. They're my chill out music. And Chester Bennington's death in 2016, it's amazing for someone that I'd never met, and yet I knew him intrinsically. And that was hard, because you're angry at what has happened. And it's not until I had to stop listening to Linkin Park for a long time, because I couldn't differentiate between the music and what had now happened. And it's only looking back at what he was saying and what his battle was, and looking at that and then going, that's where the help was. That's what he needed, and that's where the music came from. And the music helped millions. And the cliche is you can't help yourself, you can only help others. But at the same time, that hit harder than I thought it could. And it's an incredible thing to think about depression in that sense, because like I say, it doesn't matter who you are. It's just there.
Yeah. It doesn't discriminate.
Dan worked in a place where he, a couple of people committed suicide, and I remember us talking about it. I had as tough a time dealing with it as he did. Yeah. Just knowing he was in that environment, and you want to help, but
your hands are tied. How do you help?
Yeah. Right.
Just before we leave the beast, you're producing that, or one of the producers. And how did you get into that area?
With film and TV, it's awesome because I can pick up a book, and my favorite book of all time, I will answer the question. My favorite book is a filmmaker's guide for dummies, and or filmmaking for dummies. And it's amazing because it goes, this is what a director does, this is what a first AD does, and so on and so on. And then the very last paragraph is, this is what a producer does. And it's like that.
Right.
But for me, it's always been a case of, I want to learn, and I want to know, and I want to do. And I would rather be proactively learning what a DOP does, or a first AD does, or a gaffer does, and work it out. And then from that point, you have a new appreciation for the amount of work and effort that goes into something. So the producing side came about from wanting the challenge and the ability to make my own stuff. And for the most part, it's been a case of I've stepped onto other people's projects to help them, and I'm very OCD, analytical. There's just post-it notes and lists and stuff everywhere. But the reason being is I'd make that a proactive thing, and I don't walk into a room and flick the light switch on 1,000 times. But
yeah, that's what when you say OCD, that's what people think of.
Yeah, mine is everything is logical, everything's done, and everything's ticked off. But yeah, so production was one of those where it was like, oh wow, this is the dark arts. This is how things get made.
Right.
And it was amazing for me because I was like, oh no, you just give it to someone and then they put it in a cinema and that's it. It's like, no. Producer's job starts before development. And for me, learning all that was amazing. It was eye-opening because suddenly, before you sort of start looking at what a finished product looks like, you are looking back at identifying if a story works. And then if that story works, then okay, fine. How do we build the team to make it work? Do we need a ghostwriter? Do we need an analyst? Do we have to build this in a different way? Is it the wrong genre for the script? And then you pass it on and get into pre-production. And is the casting right? And all this filters back up to the producer and then back down to the HODs. And for me, I figured if I learn it sooner, I've got more time to be better at it. And I will never proclaim to be the best at anything, but I will certainly try to do the best at everything. And film production was one of those where I was like, I want to be able to make good quality films that have a reason, that have a meaning. The whole thing that we do at our production company is compelling films that have a social change element to them. So with The Beast, it's mental health. With Let No Man Know, we're looking at race, we're looking at class and caste and the social divide and the poverty divide. So we've got analogues for, even though we're telling a period story, we've got a contemporary reason for telling it. And if it hasn't got that contemporary reason, then personally it doesn't hold any weight for me, because I want to be able to at least offer a chance for change, at least a vehicle, a voice for that change. And that's the power of film, is that it can give that voice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's that pay it forward mentality through the art, really.
Exactly that. I don't necessarily believe that any one person's one voice is going to be the feather that, or the stick that breaks the camel's back. But I do believe that if you give a vehicle for enough voices, that's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with mental health and toxic masculinity and all these elements that on their own are very small, not small, but they're niche things to talk about, because every single one of them has its own thing. But if you bring it all together and put it into one vehicle, then you can talk about each part and come back to it, which is stronger in itself.
Aside from The Beast, what else is
so I'm super excited about Let No Man Know. It's the real life story of Tom Molyneux, who was a Mandingo fighter and a free slave in 1800. This all happened. This is all true. His father was a Mandingo fighter for a plantation owner in Louisiana. And to save his father's life, because usually what happened, and this is gross, but Mandingo fighters were either put out to pasture or they were put down. So to save his father's life, he said he would become a Mandingo fighter. There was a guy called Mr. Davies who trained Tom to become a fantastic pugilist. And during this sequence, we have this thing where the two rival plantation owners make a bet of each other's plantation on one fight. And it's a winner takes all situation. And Tom wins his freedom from slavery out of this fight and becomes a free black man in America. He then, with Mr. Davies, becomes an awesome pugilist, travels to New York, doing bare knuckle fighting. On the night that he's meant to leave New York to London, his trainer is killed, and he's left on his own with half the money that he's earned on a boat to London, and now he's a lone black man, 1812 in London. And this is where the real crux of the story kicks off. The first day he sets foot in London, he's mugged, and all his money and all his possessions are stolen. So now he's a lone black man in London. It's the least tolerant time in history. And he finds out about this guy called Bill Richmond. And Bill Richmond was the first free black man in London. And Bill Richmond is the only black man of that time period to have met royalty. He was a publican, but he was also a boxer, and he taught all the royals to box. And Tom sources him out, and then we go on this whole story of what slaves were treated like in London, and then how he became the ultimate pugilist of the time, and then what happened to stop him becoming the champion of Britain, the boxing champion. So we've got a huge story to tell there. It's
sounds fascinating,
absolutely amazing. And for want of a better phrase, it's Django meets Warrior via London. In that
I was thinking of Django, that, you know, the sequence where, you know, they have the two guys fight to the death, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, that's very Tarantino-fied, but it's not far off what did happen in that sense. So we've got that, and that is our allegory for race, caste, poverty, social divide, all those sort of things, and it's never been more prevalent than it is now. You know,
here in the U.S., we're going through an incredible division right now, the worst in my lifetime. And, you know, I wondered how the diversity is over in London within the film industry and just, you know, within your country.
So diversity has been huge in the last few years, and I'm a massive proponent, not of equality, but of equity. And I always bring up this analogy, that the analogy of the 5 boxes. So you got 3 people on a fence. If everyone gets 6 boxes, if everyone gets 2 boxes, some people still can't see. But if some people get 3, some people get 2, some people get 1, but everyone can see over the fence, that's equity, and that's everyone getting the same. And I couldn't be more behind that. I think everyone needs that opportunity. Everyone needs that voice. And it's great that regardless of what people might think of the BLM movement as a whole, what it has done is put the spotlight in the right area. And it has forced the story to be told, and for issues the wrong word, but for the actual scope of the problem to be finally put forthright. And there are so many stories to be told from that, stories of fantastic people from the BAME community, that those stories need to be told. And it's, I myself had enough of whitewashing. English phrase, it did my nut in. It really did. It was one of those where, okay, that's just gross and that's unnecessary. I still believe that if you're right for the role, you're right for the role. And credit goes to you being the best performer you can be. But at the same time, there needs to be that access, there needs to be that availability and that openness to talk about it and to do it. So yeah, it's definitely going in the right way. I would say there is a long way to go. I'd hate there to be any ill feeling about this. It's a change that needed to happen. It's and if you look at some of the projects coming through now, I mean, Tenet is a perfect example. Absolutely fantastic and so well done. And it again, as long as it's not tokenism, it's perfect. There's nothing worse than it being tokenism for the sake of it. I think a South Park episode did it really well recently, highlighting what's going on with you guys over there. And as long as the story's right, the casting is right, and the opportunity is right, those 3 things aligned, that's what brings something together under diversity, equality, equity, all those things, and it's done for the right reasons.
What is your take? It makes me think now, because Mike and I talked about this, and again, it was another blog that he put out, but the announcement recently by the Academy of these new inclusion criteria for the Academy Awards. I don't know if you followed that at all. I just was curious your thoughts on that.
I have a major bone to pick with the Academy. So my first big bone to pick with them is the fact that everything is on delay now with the Academy because of this. There was this one film, it was a man and his dog, and it was like, oh, we've got to give this guy an Oscar before he won't get another chance. And then that put everyone one step out. So I have that problem that people aren't getting their recognition for the time that they need to be recognized. And DiCaprio, perfect example, not getting the recognition he needed when he should have had it. He had to go and eat a liver out of a dead horse,
right,
just to get
exactly.
Whereas I don't necessarily have an issue with the word inclusion, but I hate the way it's being used because it still feels like, oh yeah, we'll just put that out there and that'll shut everyone up, and that's not what it should be. It shouldn't be a ratio system or a quota system. It should be they're awesome at their job, recognize them for it. End of. And again, last year, no female directors up for an Academy Award. I don't necessarily want to see female directors, male directors to awards. That for me, that seems weird. But I do think projects need to be taken on their merit, and it needs to be a case of people that are more current are looking at it. I think the board at the Academy needs an overhaul. I think the membership needs to change because it needs to reflect society. It doesn't need to reflect a board of governors on a company. That for me is not what film is. And a modern board, a contemporary board of people that are selecting projects based on their contemporary relevance, but also the fact that if they are a quality project or not. So yeah, for me, as much as I dislike the word inclusion, it's the best of a bad idea at the moment, and there is a better way to do it.
Yeah, Dan, I think you should put him on the island.
Yeah, exactly. So Mike and I talked early on about, we shared our top 5 films, and I said we got to ask Jamie, like, you're on a desert island, what's that list of films that you got to have? And you know, it's funny because it sounds like from what you've said, you've mentioned commentary and director's cuts and all these things. And Mike and I have battled this out for the last few years, where I've gone almost exclusive digital, where Mike's hardcore physical copies and he loves all the extras, as do I. But you know, the clutter and that's where you talk about OCD. That's where that comes into play for me. But it sounds like, are you a huge physical movie collector? You mentioned VHS earlier, so.
I have about 3,000 DVDs.
He's my kind of guy.
He's your man right there.
I bought a load just based on the fact that I had to do so much research, and it was easier at the time because this is pre-Netflix and Amazon. It was easier for me to get a hard copy for £1 than it was to go and try and find somewhere to watch it. So yeah, the top 5 is an incredibly hard thing to do. But I mean,
well, we know Terminator 2 and a Statham movie; those are got to be there.
I think it would have to be Terminator 2, Aliens, and then then it gets hard. The first Matrix, I think. Then, all right, okay, Citizen Kane.
Yeah,
and
that was on my list.
There you go.
And Shawshank, I think.
That's a good pick.
If I was to pick those 5, but then you're missing Casablanca out of that, Gone with the Wind, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and then like Godfather. I haven't mentioned a single James Dean film. Bullet's not on there. So
Giant.
So many films, so little time. You know, one thing real quick before we bring it to a close, or take up more of your time, but I was intrigued looking, is it I'm not going to get the full title right. It's something Yellow Creek. I think it's a Western.
Yeah.
I got to hear about that.
So that's a British indie that's going ahead in 2021. But that was one of those where it was like, I haven't done a Western. I'm not involved in a Western. And this character, Mackenzie, is very much a Sam Rockwell type character, bit of a loose cannon. So yeah, Yellow Creek is one of those where I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. So it's going to be one of those where it's got 5 storylines all playing off each other, and it's going to be insane to shoot because it's low budget British indie, and it's all about this one small town, and then what happens when these rival gangs use just this one town as like their center stage. And it's got a revenge storyline in it. The sheriff has got a dark secret. It's insane. It really is. And the guys at Loose Grip are fantastic people. A lot happens on camera for not much cost with these guys. Kieran Davies, lovely guy, awesome. He messaged me and he was like, yeah, love this idea for this Western, and we need you to play someone who's a little bit unhinged. I was like, yeah, got that covered, not a problem. But yeah, I mean, I'm very much looking forward to that.
Sounds like it's you going outside of your comfort zone a little bit.
It's really cool because I'm inherently not a violent or particularly aggressive person, like at all. It's not something that comes naturally to me. So when I get given violent, unhinged, vaguely aggressive, it takes a lot more work, and suddenly it's a challenge. So for me, it was like, yeah, okay, great. I've actually got to learn this. I've actually got to go and work out how I make this work. So I think it's an excuse to watch those Sam Rockwell films, which is never a bad thing.
No.
So yeah, I mean, I'm very much looking forward to that. I've got a load of projects coming up actually where I'm on screen. I've just signed to do a film called Morris Men, which is this really cool mix of the Kingsman and the Crow. So it's like an underground assassin type world, all based around. Do you know what Morris Men are?
No, educated.
They're the guys that have the bells on their feet, dance around, tapping sticks and stuff. It's really off the wall. But the idea is that's a front for this like assassin organization. So I've got to learn Eskrima martial arts for that because it's all two-handed fighting. It's all with like double stick work and that sort of thing. So that's early 20. We start previs now, but that'll be early 2021. So that's going to be absolutely insane to do. I think at one point I've got a 15-on-1 fight sequence. So that'll be fun.
So does that keep you in the gym like every day for hours?
I love the gym. I train twice a day. So I give up my lunch break and I go to the gym because I'd rather get an hour's training in than sit and eat. So since February, I've lost almost 30 kilos in weight. I went on a keto diet, lots of running, lots of cardio. So I was about 120, 125 kilos. I'm down to about 90, 93 now. Wow. I don't know what that is in American money, but I think I've lost like 2 and a bit stone. So it's been one of those where it's really helped because I was really heavy and it was hard to move and you look gross and all that sort of stuff. And you're like, oh my God, I've got to look at myself in the mirror. And instead it was like motivation time. I've got a special forces film coming up, and then with this martial arts stuff, So I'm working on the heavy bag every day. I'm getting back, making sure the kickboxing is nice and tight. And then on top of that, it's making sure that physically I'm at a point that's sustainable, it's manageable. I've got previous photo shoots coming up, so it'll be a case of, no, Jamie, you still look soft. Like,
well,
yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
I know I've heard you say that you're not big on self-promotion, but hopefully you won't mind that we're going to be excited to promote all of these upcoming projects. And I usually, we'll get this episode out and then I go hardcore and trying to,
Awesome.
push this out. So we'd be excited to do that. And, not only thanking you for giving us your time today, but it's inspiring to hear the kind of things that you're infusing into a lot of the work that you're doing. You don't hear that a lot. It's easy. I would assume could be easy to just sort of, put films out and do work that doesn't necessarily carry with it any major themes or that's really inspiring.
I think it would be incredibly easy just to put projects out for the sake of it. It would be very easy just to say yes to everything and just be done with it. And that for me wasn't the reason I got into this anyway. And now more than ever, and I say that with the gravitas it needs, is the time to really push change and to push social issues and to really take a stand, because the arts in this country has to make a stand, because otherwise we're going to lose them and we're going to lose a lot of good people out of creative industries and innovative industries. So for me, it has to be about telling the right story, and it has to be with a message, because that message, you don't know who it'll affect, you don't know who it will hit, and that in itself is incredibly strong.
Well, that's what any good art should do. Regardless of if it's music or film or painting.
Exactly that.
So,
well, you paid it forward today for us, for sure, and we appreciate it.
Yeah. I've loved it, guys. This has been
a
fantastic.
great time.
Yeah, we hope that when some of these projects, these others are coming out soon, that we could extend an invitation for you to come back and talk some more. Say the
word, and I'll be there. Not a problem.
Fantastic. It's been great.
Thank you so much.
Guys.
All right, you stay safe, Jamie. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care, guys.
All right. Bye-bye.
Man. Thanks. Good guy.
Really good guy. That was again generous with his time and just really fascinating stories. I really liked hearing about. He's a real student of film.
Yes. And he's driven. And one thing I want to bring up about the segment that got cut is he talked about Arnold and Sly being, guys that he admires, and which he's getting the chance to work with Arnold right now. And that was kind of his number one guy. And one of the things I brought up to him, knowing Arnold the way I know him from a distance, was this is a guy who is driven to succeed at everything and anything he does.
And that's what Jamie said, and again, I think it was in that piece that we lost, but how it was a blueprint, not just for being successful in film,
for life,
bodybuilding, or any avenue in life that you pursue.
And I see the same thing in him. I see that drive, that desire. We're two chuckleheads, and he gave us 2 hours of his time, like nothing, And
I was just going to say the humility too, just, I think that carries you as far as any innate talent that you might have.
And as hard as you work to screw this up, he rolled right with the punch.
He did. He was a great sport, and we look forward to having him back on again in the future. Hopefully he will. He wasn't just patronizing me. He was saying, this clown doesn't know what he's doing over here with it. He's certainly not going to be an editor on any of my films.
Yeah, good luck. If he doesn't return your email, you'll know why.
Yeah, no kidding. Blocked? What do you mean blocked? So make sure that you guys check Jamie's work out. His IMDb, you can find his resume there, and he's on social media. You can find him. I mean, we connected with him through Twitter. Quite frankly, is where I found him.
Yeah,
He's a really fascinating guy.
Don't bug him. Don't bug him.
Right.
And because then he'll hate us. But check out his stuff.
That's right.
Because there's a lot of stuff to see on his.
And as he talks, there's a lot of exciting projects to come.
Yes.
That are coming out.
And I'm really looking forward to
the Beast in particular.
There's two that are really, really intriguing.
Well, yeah, and the one about the Mandingo fighter, and that was fascinating too.
And I think he said he had 5 in the works right now.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a busy guy.
Busy guy.
And like I said, I think he's driven. I think this is a guy that he's got talent. It's going to be a special actor.
Yeah, and I think again, it's the right heart and head. You know what I mean? It's you can't really learn or teach those things. I think it's just something that he seems like a good person. You know?
Yeah, yeah. He's driven, and he's also a nice guy.
Absolutely. Well, don't forget to check out all things Oh Brother. You can find us on our official website, ohbisandbrotherpodcast.com, ohbpodcast.com. This episode with Jamie will be live on our website, both the audio version and the video interview. So, we encourage you to check those out. And Mike's blog, we've got a lot of, it's been active lately, 2 or 3 in the last couple of weeks.
And I've got 2 in pre-production.
In pre-production, pre-viz, as Jamie would say.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for another episode. I've been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith, and we will see you next time.
Here, last time I tried to do the red rum thing, and it was a disaster, and I wanted to do an Arnold, but I'm so pathetic. I would say goodbye as Arnold, but I can't.
Give it to us. Give it.
I can't.
His famous line. It fits perfectly from Terminator.
We'll be back, everyone. Horrible stuff.